Well, hello and welcome to Port City Community Church. We are so excited to be here today. My name is Lauren.
Hey, and I'm Brett, and we are in the Wilmington campus in the Connect Center, where we would normally at this time be hanging out with people, answering questions.
Seeing everybody coming in these doors, getting connected.
Yeah, well, it's called the Connect Center.
It's called the Connect
Center. There's
Center.
actually an area in every single campus where we would just be connecting with you.
Yeah.
And so we figured, let's go ahead and do that.
Yeah, because we wish you guys were here.
Oh, this is not nearly as fun.
No.
I mean, Lauren, you're awesome.
You're awesome.
But not as good as everybody else.
Yeah, we really miss you guys, and we love the chance to see you coming in down these hallways and just getting to say hey. But this is what we've got right now, and we're gonna take it. And we
we're
love
gonna take
it.
what we can get.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And there are other ways to stay connected. That's one thing that has been really, really sweet about this whole season. Oh my gosh!
Oh my goodness! It is the pastor.
It is Mike
Ashcraft.
I know you want to give us
You
a hug
realize
so
we're live
bad.
right now.
Look, he's so extroverted. He wants to give us all hugs, but we're like, hey, Mike. Thank you so much.
Oh, thanks. You did.
But
you did interrupt
you totally
us.
did.
Wait, you saw the noise?
Okay, bye.
Oh my
Oh,
goodness. Yeah. What is happening right now? Oh, that was not in the script.
That was definitely not the
But
script.
you were talking about ways that people could connect.
We were. So you could either just barge onto the set.
Yeah.
Totally fine. Or you could fill out our Connect card, which is online. And that would get you right to one of our staff. It's got everything. So if you have questions about how to get involved.
Yeah, but Lauren, my thumbs are really tired from typing on my phone. So if I don't want to type out the link to the Connect card, how do I do it?
Well, Brett, you're in luck because we have something new this week.
Oh, what's that?
We have, why don't I just tell you?
Yeah, tell me.
Okay, we have QR codes. And guys, if you've never used this before, it is such a fun little shortcut. So basically it's that barcode looking thing.
Yeah.
It's a black and white box. If you've never used one before, you'll see it on the screen, and it's all you have to do is hold your phone up to it as if you're about to take a picture.
Yeah, you don't even have to take the picture. Just open up your camera app, hold it over the QR code. It'll take you to the link.
It's just lickety-split.
We want to connect so bad with you. We're just creating new ways to do it.
It's fun. It's really fun. You should all try it. And what it'll do is it'll bring you right there. You can just fill out that card. Let us know what you need. Do you need prayer? Do you need just to let us know that you're new? Maybe this is your first time, and if so, welcome. We are really glad you decided to join us.
Yeah.
Or just let us know who you are. What's going on? We'd love to connect with you.
So another way that you can connect with us, even though you can't be with us, is through the chat. So in all the different ways you can watch the service, you can connect with us on chat, whether it's on Facebook or on YouTube or portcity.tv. So why don't you go ahead right now? If you're online, well, they're obviously online because they're watching us right now. But why don't you go ahead and just tell us where you're watching from? That's one of the best ways for us to connect with you.
It's true.
And chat online. Why? This is not that funny.
I think it's funny.
Okay.
I think it's funny.
Well, I've been doing the chat. I've actually been hosting the chat at the 12 o'clock service, and it's been really fun to see where people are watching from. Like, there's a family, Lauren, who is watching together, but one family member is here in Wilmington, another family member is up in New York City, and another one is out in Texas, and they're watching at the same time.
That's really cool.
That's
cool.
Is actually not the same time, because in Texas it's 11 when it's 12 here. Mind blown. I know.
Right, I know.
But they are all watching at the same time, which is really cool.
That's fun.
That's
And
something we can't do when we're all together.
Exactly. It's really unique. So I'm glad. Yeah. And I actually got to talk with somebody from the chat last week who had been chatting. And then we actually talked on the phone. So that was really fun to be able to meet her a little bit more and just get to know her. And really just the chat made her feel like part of this church, which made me so happy.
That is awesome.
We should definitely do that. So yeah. Go ahead and say hello. Let us know where you're coming from.
So, we're 8 weeks in to this quarantine, stay-at-home-ish season.
Yes.
How's it going for you, Lauren?
Actually, it's been really fun.
Yeah.
We're all working from home, so my husband has his little setup at the kitchen table. We have a 10-month-old foster baby that hangs out all over the house. I kind of chase him around. We do have some childcare now, so I've been able to get more stuff done, which has been nice.
That's good.
But it's been really, really sweet, actually, just to kind of slow down, go on walks, do laundry during the day.
Hey. Getting ahead.
Getting ahead. The only thing I really miss are manicures, if we're just being honest. I miss it. I miss a manicure.
Yeah,
I'm ready.
Your nails don't look terrible.
Thank
as
you.
far as I can tell from 6 feet
Just
apart.
don't zoom. Yeah, don't zoom in. What about you?
So our family, we have 3 kids, 1 in high school and 2 in middle school. And what's great is that their schools were planning ahead, kind of seeing the writing on the wall about needing to do homeschooling. And so my kids have actually been doing homeschool now, online schooling essentially, for weeks.
Okay.
They're a little disappointed for multiple reasons. One, they like school. They like seeing their friends. They don't particularly enjoy online schooling, but they also don't like the fact that both of their parents have teaching degrees. So where they thought they would be able to just kind of mail in their work, we're actually checking behind them and making them actually learn. So they're over it. They're like,
yeah, I'm sure.
They love having teacher parents.
Oh yeah, that's awesome.
But we've been doing great. We've been doing a lot of outside stuff. The saving grace in Wilmington is that the weather's been amazing essentially for 2 months.
Which is awesome.
It is.
I mean,
you can get outside and do stuff.
Yeah, because imagine if we shouldn't say that because we know that not everybody's experiencing this, but for
sorry,
us,
New York State, who got snow this week.
Yeah, we're kind of living that like San Diego life. So for those of you that are watching from like the beautiful parts of the West, we are experiencing what you have, those beautiful like 75-degree days.
Yeah. It's been pretty awesome.
I love it. But one thing that's also been really, really cool, I will say about all this, is that we've been able to connect as a church in a really different way. We have been able to gather with people from all 4 campuses and even not a campus, our online campus, people from out of town, getting into groups together. And to me, that's just been really, really cool, really, really special because we've just never done it before.
Yeah.
So there's groups that are designed right now for people that are processing questions about faith. Maybe this whole thing has just really rattled some doubts. We have groups like that. We have groups that are designed for people to just get deeper in their walks. We actually have one that's starting in just a few weeks. So honestly, if you want to jump in, just let us know on that Connect card and we can get you in a group like that. But that's been a really fun thing. It is on Zoom.
Yeah, whose stock has apparently gone way up in the last 2 months.
Right, like who would have thought we're all on Zoom?
Raise your hand if you've been doing Zooms nonstop. Yes, we all have.
Be honest though, on your Zoom,
yeah,
because we're on Zoom a lot with work and stuff.
Yep.
Is your whole house always like perfect?
Nope. All you have to worry about is about a 3 square foot area to make sure it's clean, and just make sure nobody bumps the computer or tablet because they might see that pile of laundry in the corner.
I know, it's kind of scary.
Yeah, but you also have to make sure that you get your camera or whatever it is up high so you don't have Zoom chin. You got to get the lighting right.
I'm calling it my Corona chin. It's okay. But yes, you're right. If as long as you have your little set, you're good.
Yep, and just make sure nobody walks behind you. Like my children will walk, my boys will walk past like shirtless in the middle of Zoom meetings. I'm like, wow, this is appropriate.
There have been some funny things online about that, but I think most of us can probably relate. Like, it's a different time, but we're getting through it.
Yeah.
You know, and there's some really sweet parts about it. So it's been fun.
Bittersweet.
Yes. Yes.
So today we are starting a series called The Way. So Mike is going to be giving us that message here coming up in a couple of minutes. But honestly, today is not about a new message or church service online. It's really all about
the mamas.
The mamas. So it is Mother's Day, so we want to say Happy Mother's Day. And we can say Mother's Day, Happy Mother's Day right here, but that's just 2 of us. So we figured our whole church would want to say Happy Mother's Day to you moms out there. So go ahead and check out this quick video that our church put together for you. So we just want to say Happy Mother's Day to all the moms. I want to say Happy Mother's Day to my mom and to my mother-in-law, who I know is watching. And I also want to say Happy Mother's Day to my wife, Karina. Thanks for all that you do. And Happy Mother's Day to you, Lauren.
Thank you so
much. It's our first Mother's Day.
It is. It's really special. And I want to say Happy Mother's Day to my mom and my wonderful mother-in-law as well. We love you guys so much. So thank you, everybody, for being here. Thanks so much for hanging out with us. We are getting ready to start the service. There's even a notes tab if you're following along in the chat. So feel free to do that as Mike is sharing.
There's also an opportunity to ask for prayer.
Yeah.
And you can start a prayer conversation if you have any needs that we can help with in that way.
Absolutely. So stay engaged with us. Thanks again for hanging out with us, and enjoy the rest of the service.
Together, everybody, wherever you are, we lift our voice, remember who God is. This glory. Rumors of the Son of Man, stories of our Savior, holiness with human hands, treasure for the traitor. No ear had heard, no eye had seen the image of the Father, until heaven came to live with me, a rescue like no other. So we lift it up. And you are worthy. Died for your accusers, and as your blood fell to the ground, oh, you redefined my future. Oh, thank you, Lord. And on the day that you rose, when darkness ran for cover, the King of Kings has claimed his throne, now until forever. And you are worthy, and you are worthy of your name, and you are worthy, and you are Jesus. We sing his name, his promises. You're my oath, my maker, my ransom, my savior, my refuge, my hiding place. And You're my helper, my healer, my blessed redeemer, my answer, my saving grace. You are. And you're my help in the shadows, my strength in the battle, my anchor for all my days. And you stand by my side and you stood in my place. Jesus, no other name, only Jesus, no other name. You are, and you are worthy. You are worthy of your name. You are worthy. You are. You are worthy of your name. We say that you are worthy. You are worthy of your name. You are worthy. You are worthy of your name. Oh Jesus, no one like you, God. We join with all creation to sing worthy, worthy. Worthy are you, Jesus. Worthy are you, Lord. You are worthy. You are worthy of your name. You are worthy. You are worthy of your name, Jesus. Oh, Jesus. Oh, you're with us, Lord. There's a grace when my heart is under fire. Another way when the walls are closing in. And when I look at the space between where I used to be and this reckoning, oh, I know I'll never be alone. There was another in the fire, standing next to me. There was another in the waters, holding back the seas. And should I ever need remind, power set me free. There is a cross that bears the burden, where another died for me. There was another in the fire. All my dead left for dead beneath the waters, and I'm no longer a slave to my sin anymore. Oh, thank you, Lord. When I look in the space between what remains of me and this reckoning, either way I won't bow to the things of this world, 'cause I know I will never be alone. There was another in the fire, standing next to me. There is another in the waters, holding back the seas. And should I ever need reminded what power set me free, there is a grave that holds nobody, and now that power lives in me. There is another in the fire. Oh, there is another in space between us, Jesus. There is no other name but the name that is Jesus. He who was and still is and will be through it all. So come what may. So come what may in the space between all the things unseen and this reckoning. I know I will never be alone. Oh, I know I'll never be alone. There'll be another in the fire standing next to me. There'll be another in the waters holding back the seas. And should I ever need reminding how good you've been to me, I'll count the joy come every battle, 'cause I know that's where you'll be. And I can see the light in the darkness as the darkness bows to hell. I can hear the roar in the heavens as the space between was thin. I can feel the ground shake beneath us as the prison walls cave in. Nothing stands between us. Nothing stands. Another in the fire standing next to me. There'll be another in the waters holding back the seas. And should I ever need reminding how good you've been to me, I'll count the joy come every battle. Oh, that's where I'll count the joy come every battle, 'cause I know that's where you'll be. I count the joy come every battle, 'cause I know that's where you'll be. I count the joy come every battle, 'cause I know that's where you'll be. Count the joy come every battle, 'cause I know that's where you'll be.
Well, that's true for us today, that he is with us. His name is Jesus, and we believe that he is worthy of that name, the name above all names. It's why we sing. It's why we celebrate, to lift his name up. So let's do just that as we sing this song, the name of Jesus. Come on. There was a moment when the lights went out, when death had claimed its victory. The King of love had given up his life, the darkest day in history. There on a cross they made for sinners, for every curse his blood atoned. One final breath and it was finished, but not the end we could have known, no. For the earth began to shake, and the veil was torn, when sacrifice was made, as the heavens roar. Come on, church, we sing this together. And oh, hail King Jesus, oh, hail the Lord of heaven and earth, oh, hail King Jesus, yes, and all hail the Savior of the world. King Jesus. There was a
all was lost, he crossed eternity. The King of life was on the move, yeah. For in a dark hole tomb, where our Lord was laid, oh, I know what miraculous breath, yes, and we're forever changed, oh yes we are. Oh, hail King Jesus, oh, hail the Lord of heaven and earth, oh, hail King Jesus, oh, hail the Savior of the world, oh, hail King Jesus, oh, hail the Lord of heaven and earth, oh, hail King Jesus, oh, hail the Savior of the world. So let every need and let every need come bow before the King of Kings, and let every tongue confess that He is Lord. Lift up your shout, let us join with all the heaven singing, holy, we sing together, come on. And oh, hail King Jesus, and oh, hail the Lord of heaven and earth, oh, hail King Jesus, oh yes, oh, hail the Savior of the world, you are.
Let's go, church. What a powerful thing to declare today, that one miraculous breath happened and we were forever changed. Jesus is alive, Jesus is moving, and Jesus, I believe, is speaking to you today. And I believe our best response is just to give Him everything that we are, to give Him all of our praise, to give Him all of our voice, to give Him all of our body, to give Him all of our dreams today. What a powerful and important thing for us to declare in the middle of the season that we're in today. Church, thank you for allowing us into your home today and for just being willing to join together electronically in this season and declare the glory and the goodness of God. Church, this week I was reminded of something that Jesus said to Peter in one of his conversations with him. And I love how Jesus always said things with such a humility, but also such a high level of confidence. And Jesus in Matthew 16, Matthew records it, and Jesus just confidently says to Jesus says to Peter, 5 really, really powerful words. And I think they're especially powerful for us to remember in this season. He very simply says, I will build my church. And he's telling Peter that he is the rock on which that he is going to build the church. But he says so confidently, I will build my church. He doesn't say, I might build my church, or I will build my church when it's easy, or I will build my church until coronavirus, and then I'll take a pause on my building of the church. No, he says, I will build my church. So we can believe confidently today that Jesus is alive and is building his church to redeem the world, to share his love and his hope, and to give his life to the world and the people that he loves. Church, I hope that that encourages you today, and I hope that you can hold on to that, not only today, but in the days and weeks to come as we continue to walk forward together through this season. And we just want to take a second in our moment of generosity that we have every week. I would love to just acknowledge that our church believes words matter. And when we talk about giving, we want to be intentional because we want to show the heart of what giving really means. And this weekend, we saw that with another successful food drive yesterday at the Wilmington campus. And it's just such an encouragement to see the church wide open, loving the people of our community. So if you're feeling led to give financially to our church, we want to lend our hand and invite you into that. We don't want you to feel any pressure at all, but we do believe that the word giving encapsulates so beautifully the culture of generosity that we want our church to have. And if you're watching from another part of the country or even the world and you call another church home, we want to take this opportunity just to invite you to give to where you are, to give to your local church. We believe God is moving in local churches all around the world to carry forth his compassion and love for the world in this season. So we'd love to encourage you to do that. In just a second, our senior pastor, Mike Ashcraft, is going to be out to start a new series called The Way.
Hey everybody, it's great to see you. Thank you for joining in. Thank you, Carson, for reminding us about generosity. We have been very fortunate. And I think what Carson mentioned is that we are serious about when it comes to generosity, even leveraging our church in different ways than what we would have done previously to really meet the needs and to work with other organizations, not only in Wilmington, but Jacksonville, New Bern, and Leland and our surrounding region to really be involved, and in fact around the world. This past week, we were on a Zoom call, a meeting with some of our partners, specifically Love Justice, which deals with human trafficking, particularly over in India, in that area, Nepal and such, and there's a lot of work going on there. And part of what happened in India with the coronavirus and the shutdown was that people were literally starving to death, and they were able to pivot and to start providing food. And so they had talked to us about how we could be involved. And one of our staff members, Evans Baggs, he oversees our missions efforts. And he kind of came up with this idea, and he worked with our HR folks here and decided to make available our vacation days as a staff. And I feel very uncomfortable about sharing this, but I want you to see the heart of your church. This made me so excited to be a part of our staff and our church that basically for staff to be able to cash in their days and donate their days specifically to Love Justice. And so we were able to make a way for that to happen, and our staff donated their vacation days, and we were able to send $18,000 to Love Justice. And I was listening to Doug, he's runs Love Justice, listening to him tell the story and just how much it blessed his heart. And it just reminds me of the opportunities we have to do things from where we are, to do the simple things, even in the middle of what's going on. And that was just one thing that reminded me. And then obviously today is Mother's Day, so I want to join my voice, lend my voice to wishing all of the moms a happy Mother's Day as well, and hope that you get to celebrate that today. And one of the things that I think as we start or move into this new series, and really it's still focused on the season between the resurrection and Pentecost. What happened after Easter? That's been my thinking and my drive, and there's a tension that we're living in. And that's been the operative word, concept in my mind and my heart over the last few weeks, and particularly in last week in the light of all that happened in our country, which I'll be addressing a little bit more in a few moments. But this idea of that we live in this place of tension, and so I've been trying to get my head around this and to understand this, and I want to draw a couple things out for you. I know that's a shocker. I always want to draw stuff out. And my daughter hates when I draw circles, but I'm gonna draw them anyway. And there's this place where there's heaven and there's earth. In the beginning, God created the heavens and he created the earth. And he designed a place or a space for us to dwell together, for us to be his people and for him to be our God, for us to belong together in that way. And then sin entered and that space was separated. And then what happened in the gospel is he has made a way, and this is what's really important. He has made a way for these two things to overlap again. And what we've been talking about is oftentimes the gospel is presented, let's say this is earth, and this is heaven, right? This is the place where God resides and all that he is. And this is earth, what he has created. And these two things are designed to be together, but they've been separated. He's made a way for us to live in this place that a lot of theologians say that's now and not yet. It's the kingdom is at hand, but it's not yet fulfilled. You might think of it this way, right? There's a place in which something is promised. And then there is a place in which that promise is fulfilled. And there's a space in between those two things that we have to live in, the place where something is promised and the place where that promise is fulfilled. And that's what we're dealing with. That's the tension that we live in. That's why we can have, on the one hand, we can be celebrating something beautifully, and on the other hand, despairing over something so tragic. And these two things exist simultaneously in the same place. What you hear is Jesus taught us to pray, and he said things like this, that you pray that God's kingdom come and his will be done on earth as it is in heaven. That means over here in this place, it means his will is done. Over here in this place, it means it isn't done. And this is the tension that we live in. This is the space that we live in. We want to learn, how do we live right here, right now, in this way of life? And one of the questions I want to ask you is, how does your way of life, right? Or how does the way of Jesus affect your way of life? It's now and not yet, right? He has said that Jesus' message was the kingdom of heaven is here. What a lot of folks have done with the gospel and said the gospel is all about getting people from here and getting them to there, that these two things still are separated, getting people from here to there. And that's not what the gospel is at all. Jesus came to bring about his kingdom on earth as it is in heaven until the redemption of all things under his rule and his reign. We talk a lot about original sin. The gospel often starts with original sin. Adam's sin affected us all, but I think we ought to start the gospel with original life. What did God intend when he called us into existence, when he created us and intended us? And what we've been saying is this, that we are created and we are called to live in relationship to him. I think we'll put that up there. We are called and we are created to live in relationship to him and with him. Our lives find their meaning and their purpose in relationship to him. He is the one who created us. He gets to define us. He called us alive, and he gets to be that life for us. And it is out of that relationship, it is flowing from that relationship that we are invited to participate with him under his rule and his reign. We are invited to participate with him under his rule and under his reign. We're invited. It is out of our relationship. Everything flows. And so Jesus comes and he makes a way for us to do some things. And the problem is what most of us do is we think that our way, if you think about this, if you've ever promised your kids, we're gonna go somewhere, and then everything is just them nagging you about when we're gonna get to finally do what you've promised. Mom, when are we gonna go? Dad, when are we gonna go? When's this gonna happen? And we have to sort of entertain them to keep them from bothering us until the promise is fulfilled. And instead, what really is the reality is there's a purpose, there's tremendous potential, there's a lot that happens that we do in between this place where God has promised us the redemption of all things and this place where we wait for that to be fulfilled. We get to work and offer our lives for the things so that God's will is done right here, right now on earth, the same way that it is done and will be done forever in the fullness of his kingdom when these two things come together. The problem is our way is typically framed by my way. Most all of us, and I think all of us are plagued by this, most all of us fundamentally see the world through the lens of our particular view and our particular needs, and things only become a problem or an issue when they become a problem or an issue to me. And we see the way as directional, as a way to get what we want, a way to get to where we need to be, and everything that we're using is a means to that end. We all have a way of seeing the world that frames and defines the way we relate to the world. All of us do. And the way that we relate to God, the way that you relate to God actually influences the way that you relate to the world around you. And my question again is, how does the way of Jesus affect your way of life? You see, when we think about living in this tension, what a lot of us can do is to sort of create a world or a way for ourselves where our lives are manageable and comfortable. And what happens is we stop paying attention to the plight or the concerns that other people have, the things that plague our world. And there are two reasons essentially not to pay attention. I'll give them to you real quickly. Number one is your own comfort. We just don't want to pay attention to other people's pain because it disrupts our comfort. I'm fine, my life is fine, my backyard is fine, my little world is fine, my job is fine. I don't really have the capacity to worry about what's going on with you because it will make me uncomfortable. It threatens my comfort. Listen, that's a very normal thing. That's what happens to us because we live in this world. We just sort of surround ourselves and we make ourselves comfortable. We create our own destinies and then we try to preserve those. And it's very easy to get locked into that. That's not what Jesus came to awaken us and call us to, but that's our natural drift. The other reason we don't pay attention to other people, sometimes it's our own pain. I remember one time I had a really bad crick in my neck. Have you ever slept on your neck wrong and it hurt? It's like you have to turn around like this. And someone's like telling me about stuff and they're telling me about the hardship they're going through. I can't even pay attention to their hardship. Why? Because I've got a crick in my neck. Have you ever tried to listen to someone like telling you about something while you have a crick in your neck? The only thing screaming at you is the crick in your neck. And so there are reasons why we end up not paying attention more closely to what's happening in the world. This takes work and it requires something else to act in us, or more importantly, act on us. And this is what Jesus talks about when he identifies himself as the way in John chapter 14. We'll look there and we'll also be spending some time in Galatians chapter 5 over the next couple of weeks. And this is the famous place where Jesus is preparing his disciples. He's about to be crucified, arrested and crucified. And he's told them he's gonna rise again. He's gonna come back from the dead. He's told them he's gonna ascend to his Father. And he says that I am the way, the truth, and life. I'm going away to prepare a place for you. And if I go away, I'll return. He's talking about not this destination. I think he's talking about this way of life. And you can really read into this, I think, and make a good case for this. But Jesus says, I am the way, the truth, and the life, and no one comes to the Father but through me. And we've talked about this. This isn't about us getting into heaven. This is about a reconciled relationship to the Father. We've got to really, really start to consider this and let this speak to us, because this is how Jesus himself presented the gospel to us. This is what he calls his message. And so I want to pick up in later on down in verse 4 and 7 and look at what Jesus says. So Jesus tells them this. Thomas says, hey, we don't know where you're going. How can we know the way? And Jesus says this, but I've said these things to you that when the hour comes, you'll remember that I told you. You'll remember this conversation later on. What I'm about to tell you now, it's gonna come to mind later on. I did not say these things to you from the beginning because I was with you. I was here, but now I'm preparing you for when I'm not gonna be here. Now I'm going to be with him who sent me. I'm going to the Father. And none of you are asking me, where are you going? Because I've said to you these things. You're just sorrows filled your heart. Basically, you've just reacted. I told you I'm going away, and you're like, you can't go away because that will what? It will mess up what we currently have. Things aren't gonna be the way that they are. And here's what Jesus says to them, nevertheless, I tell you the truth. It is to your advantage that I go away. Jesus is telling us he is the way, and then he tells us that it's to our advantage that he goes away. For if I do not go away, the helper will not come to you. But if I go, I will send him to you. And this is the Holy Spirit, right? There's gonna be 2 chapters where Jesus talks about what the Holy Spirit does. He confronts us, he challenges us, he comforts us, he guides us, he recalls to mind the truth. The Holy Spirit is active in our lives doing this. We wanna look at this more important. It's so important we understand this. But Jesus says to us, it's to our advantage that he goes away because something's gonna happen. His presence is now going to dwell with us once again. What's gonna happen is the way that Jesus made is a way for us to dwell in this space. The tongues of fire and all that we talked about last week are really synonymous, or they're references, they're symbolic to these temple spaces, and temple spaces where the place where heaven and earth meet and the deity dwells with his people, where God dwells with his people. That's how it's been thought of. So when he talks about us being the temple, he's saying that you and I now have this place. I mentioned this last week, that your mind, your heart, your eyes, your hands, your feet, they become the first place where God's will is done right here on earth as it is in heaven. It's the first place, and this is really important for us. The thing that Jesus said that we needed was if we don't go away, we won't get a helper. And my question was, help with what? What do we need help with? I think we need help seeing. I think we need help understanding. I think we need help becoming. We need help remaining, staying connected, keeping our vision, understanding purpose. We need help fighting against the natural drift of what our way will typically be and yielding it to the way of Jesus. And God has sent us a helper, his very presence, to be with us, and we need help. And the events of this past week serve as a pointed reminder that we need help and we need it desperately. One of the things that I've been thinking about and talking about over the last few years researching about is how fundamentally individualistic we are, myself included. Other cultures, we're the first culture, the modern West is the first culture in the history of the world that doesn't fundamentally exist as a community of people, as people groups, but it exists as a collection of individuals with rights. It's a unique thing throughout human history, and so here we are, and we all tend to see the world through that lens. Oftentimes through no fault of our own, it's just the water that we've been swimming in for so long. And what happens is we look around and we can certainly tend to the political climate, all the other things that are happening, but we know there's so much work to do in our culture in order for God's kingdom to come to bear on the earth, on the world around us. But there's work to do in our culture on many issues, but we were pointedly reminded of the continuing injustice that remains in our culture this past week. In our culture, it remains in our culture, and it's the issue of racial injustice. It remains with us, and it was so evident in the killing of Ahmaud Arbery. I know a lot of you ran and posted and read a lot. I spent the better part of an evening. I just wrote his name. One of the posts said, it was a kind of a picture of him, and it said, "My name is Ahmaud Arbery. Know my story, say my name." And so I just wrote his name in my journal, and I just began to enter in. And the outcry over the past week has obviously led to the arrest, and those are all good things, but they are not the end point, nor are they the solution to the problem. We are all familiar with this issue, and this has brought this to the forefront in ways that I don't know that I have seen before. And what we want to do, and I know there's been a lot of people just sort of surging forward, wanting to stand with and to run and to be involved and to understand what is going on and what they can do about the scourge of the racial injustice and disparity that we see in our culture. There are a couple things I can recommend to you. Be the Bridge is one. We're going to be hosting, Be the Bridge is going to be hosting a Zoom call or a Zoom conference. The information will be, we'll be able to put that on our website and put that out so you can see that. But Be the Bridge does a really good job of educating and helping us see and understand what is really at stake and what is going on. It's just a great way to get perspective. I've been involved with some of the folks who lead that and have been super helpful to me. And I know specifically as a white person that you may say, I want to say something or I want to post something, but you're afraid that you'll say the wrong thing. Listen, I get it. I get it, I have a public voice, I get that. But the key is for us to learn and to understand. And for some of you, you're gonna have to listen to this over and over. I've tried to write this out as clearly as I can so I can be very clear on what I'm saying and what I've learned. The challenge of racial injustice isn't just a black problem, but rather it's a human problem. It affects all of us, and the responsibility is on all of us to contribute to our culture in a way that puts an end to what we currently see. I wanna share a little bit about my own personal journey. I know for a lot of us, this is a hard thing for us to walk into because either we have been dealing with this for a long time and now, or we're just now coming in and we don't know what to do. So we're gonna have to just work together on this. My own journey began, for some of you, you've been on this journey for a couple years, even years longer than me, but for our friends of color, it has been for their entire life. And my hope is that God would use his people to begin to distribute that burden and that load as we gain clarity and work to bring God's heart for justice and reconciliation and the beauty of his image in our church for the sake of the world. Y'all, there is a way forward. There is also a way forward in which we can remain unchanged. There is a way that allows us to continue in all the terrible things that we do and that we see. There is a way for that to happen. But there's also a way for things to be different. And that is what I believe the way of Jesus came to introduce and to call us into, and why it is so important that we depend on the helper that he sent, life in the Holy Spirit, for us to move in and to live out differently in the unity that God has intended for his people to live in and to work towards for the sake of this reunification and redemption of the world around us. I've been on a steep learning curve regarding racism and racial issues for a long time. And I'm so thankful to be a part of a church and to have friends who are willing to have these conversations with me, both of all different races, to have these kind of conversations with me and not to be afraid. Some of them have been very uncomfortable and very challenging. Sometimes it's been frustrating. All these emotions go into this. But they've helped me enter into these conversations, and not just enter into conversations, but enter into relationships. I have a friend of mine who is black, and we were talking about this because sometimes your first thought is, why is everything about race? And you think, aren't we past this? Or you say things like that. I remember talking to him about this and asking him. And he began to tell me why it was important to him. And what I realized, what God spoke to me in that moment was that I love this man. I love him, we are friends. And if something is important to him, and I don't understand why it's important, that's a way for me to say something's important to him, it needs to become important to me, and begin to learn to lean in and understand and make it important as though it is to him, because that's an act of love. So that's what I began to do, this huge learning curve. We all have first thoughts and gut reactions. We don't intend them to be that way, but it's just framed by what we already see, mainly because what we have seen, we've seen for so long, and we just haven't been able to see anything differently. When our first thoughts are those of suspicion or discrimination, anything, there must be something that we need to do. Listen, there are systematic issues that need to be addressed in our culture. I get that. But there are also personal issues that you and I need to reconcile and wrestle with. This has taken me years to understand. I still have a lot of work to do, both personally and in the way God calls me to lead our church together. I remember back in 2001 or 2002, I went to a class and I heard Tim Tyson talk. And this was my first real entrance into the larger picture of the history. I'd gone through high school and heard about it and read about it, but not in this kind of deep way, and really having to read books by people of different perspectives. If you're interested, I would read Brian Stevenson. You can go watch the documentary 13th. There's a lot of really good things you can do to get some perspective. Be the Bridge is another one. But he said this is how he opened his whole talk. He says, we've been swimming in the waters of white supremacy. And like a fish doesn't know it's wet because it's in water, we don't know that we're all impacted by white supremacy. And my first thought was, what? Like what are you talking? I'm not a white supremacist. That was my very first thought and my very first reaction. But as I began to look and understand and think, and this is really one of the messages that Brian Stevenson has been so good about getting to the forefront, helping me to understand, I think it would help you as well. But the white supremacy is a curse on our nation, and it affects our culture. We all know the history of our country. We all know the reality of slavery and the civil rights movement and all the things that have happened in between. We all know those things, and they are not without effect on the condition of the culture that we currently live in. The view of which a majority culture has emerged and has been able to preserve power has seeded a way in which our world now currently works. It seeded it. The things that happened 20, 30, 100, 200 years ago, all of these things plant seeds for the culture that they affect what we currently live in. And for those of us who are white, we scarcely notice. But for those who are not white, it is never not noticed. And y'all, that is the point. If we can get our heads and our hearts around that, I think everybody who ran this past week or did that, you recognize that if you are a majority culture, you ran with a different view than someone who is not. It's that. We were in a class and we were sitting with a table and there were multiple ethnic groups there, multiple races there. And they asked us the question, how often do you think about your race in the course of a day? And my answer was never. And everyone who was not the majority culture said, we think about it all the time. That is the difference. Y'all, throughout history, the church has often stood on the wrong side of these issues. As I've been spending time reflecting and praying, I was reading articles, and because you think, how in the world could a church who believes the Bible and the gospel stand on the side of slavery or stand against civil rights or how could they do that? Y'all, there is a way. There's a way for that to happen. And what makes this so scary is that way is actually more available than we think that it is. It's so important for us to think about how this is a way. There is a way for you to ignore the issues and to go on about your business without being bothered by the things that bother you. There are ways that we can create ways to preserve our own way all the time. That's something that's that's our natural default. This is why Jesus came and he says, I am the way. It's not a direction sign. He invites us into a life. More importantly, he invites us into his death and his resurrection as a way of life. How can we look away and pretend pretend that we're not affected? There's a way to do that. But maybe the question is, how can we find a way to care and to be broken and to enter in this tension that exists? You know what the churches did during the Civil War? You know what they did to continue to stand or to allow the injustices of slavery to exist? They separated heaven and earth. They said, our task as the church, our goal is simply getting people from here to there. And the things of earth belong to the earth. And the things of earth did not concern the things of the church. And they never learned to understand. The problem is that is not the heart of God, nor is it the gospel. Jesus came here and he proclaimed his kingdom and he said our work, our prayer, our efforts are for his will to be done here on earth as it is in heaven. The way we concern ourselves with the redemption of all things is the way in which you and I live in the kingdom right here and right now. What Jesus said to us, when he talks about this place, this way, he said to seek first the kingdom of God and his righteousness, and all of these things will be added unto you. To seek first his kingdom. For us to see things through the lens of kingdom, because what we seek first, we will see first. If you see through the lens of, you name it, it's gonna frame how you see everything else. And there are two reasons I wanna give you to tend to your default view, to know what it is. Most of us don't even know it. But when you begin to seek first his kingdom at the expense of everything else that you normally see through, it frames the worth of the people that you see. It gives a picture of them, that we under the kingdom see the worth and value of a person as one who is made by God and for God. And number two, when we see through the lens of the kingdom first, it prevents us from separating heaven and earth. It prevents us from running away from the tension and separating ourselves from the pursuit of justice and righteousness and shalom. It prevents us from separating so that we don't have to be concerned about what concerns other people, and more importantly, what concerns God's heart. There's a lot of talk about the fact that as a culture, we must do better and we must do better. But in order for we to do better, I must do better and you must do better. When we were talking about this, because we were talking about white supremacy and standing against white supremacy, and we were having a great conversation, and my tension in this was that whenever the church stands against something, she always loses. Whenever the church stands against gambling, she loses. When she stands against dancing, she loses. When she stands against things, she always loses. And I said, what are we for? If we're not just coming to demolish and to be against white supremacy, what are we for? And my friend Gina, she said, we are for kingdom supremacy. I was like, what an incredible way for us to think about this. This is what we are for. Life with God together for the world. That kingdom supremacy destroys any other allegiance, white supremacy included. Kingdom supremacy means that we see everyone as an image bearer of God the Father. They are created with value and worth and dignity, and our ethnic diversity, the unity of our ethnic diversity, is intended to display the beauty of God's image in this world and in his church. And every effort to diminish or to divide that is from the enemy, and it needs to be confronted in our world. It needs to be confronted in our own minds, and it needs to be confronted in our own hearts. And this is where the hard work is done, and this is where we need help. And God has sent a helper. Kingdom supremacy is marked by three things. I want to give them to you real quick. Then I'm going to give you an exercise, and then we'll wrap up. Kingdom supremacy is marked first. It's the way in which we live under the authority of his rule and reign. It's the way in which we live. It's the way in which we yield our lives to him. Number two, it's the way we leverage our lives for others. It's the way we take what advantage I've been given and we yield that and offer that to others. We leverage, we take the things that we've been given and we use them in God's hands under his grace for the sake of other people, because that's what God's love demands of us. That's what kingdom supremacy looks like. And then third is this, the way we depend on his way to be our way. Kingdom supremacy is what it means when Jesus said that I'm going to send you a helper, the Holy Spirit. And what Paul would later echo is this in Galatians chapter 5, verse 25. He says, if we live by the Spirit, let us also keep in step with the Spirit. This is a moment by moment by moment journey. If we live by the Spirit, let us also keep in step with the Spirit. The key to this is to surrender. The key to this is surrender. But surrendering isn't just the fact that you change your mind. It's not just going, oh, I'm going to think differently about this. Surrender requires something else. Look at the context for this verse. If you back up in verse 24, it says, go back to verse 24. And those who belong to Jesus Christ have crucified the flesh. The rule and reign in this dimension have been crucified and have been replaced by the rule and reign of the kingdom. We have crucified the flesh with its passions and desires, with its worldview, with all of those other things. Our way goes away when we walk in his way. That's pretty clever, right? Our way goes away when we walk in his way. And those who belong to Christ have crucified the flesh with its passions and desires. And if we live in this way, look at this, if we live in this way by the Spirit, let us also keep in step with the Spirit. Now here's what this looks like. I want to finish with this exercise, and then I promise I'll be done. Because we're waiting and we're in this season where things aren't happening, we kind of measure things by points of time. And even now, time has gotten harder and harder and harder to measure. We had to remind people it was Sunday because it's like, oh, we forget, is it Tuesday, is it Saturday? What's the difference? Our kids are home, everything's still the same. So we know that's going on. But marking points of time is very, very important. And I discovered this when I was a youth minister. When I was a youth minister, what happened is every summer, say summer pick a year, summer of 1995, a kid would come to summer camp. And at summer camp of summer 1995, we'll put a summer there, an SF for summer. At summer, he would come to the end of the retreat. We had a youth camp. He'd come to the end of the camp and say, God, I surrender my life to you. I just want to give you all of my life. And he'd go back to Wilmington and live. And then the next summer of 1996, he would come back to camp, come to the end of camp. He'd come down the front. And he'd say, God, I surrender my life to you. Surrender my life to you. Now, I begin to notice that this is what we call a surrender interval. This is the amount of time between points of surrender. So Ormond Beach 95, Ormond Beach 96, surrender interval equals, any guesses out there? 1 year. So I began to create more and more and more retreats. So I would have a retreat in, say, for 98, I would have a retreat in the summer of 98. I would have one in the fall of 98, and I would have one in the spring of 98, and then I would have one, or winter, whatever, you get the idea. And I would create these. And then every 4 months, the kids would come back and they would say, God, I surrender my life. And the next semester, God, I surrender my life. And the next semester, surrender my life. And so the surrender interval becomes a what? Any guesses? 4 months. And so we began to go, how can we keep doing this? So we did something every week. And oftentimes every week at the end of a service, we would say, hey, there's a chance for you to just reconnect, to just surrender, to keep in step with the Spirit. So every Wednesday night, they would come in and say, God, I surrender my life to you every single night. And their surrender interval was 7 days. So some of you, that's where you're at. Every 7 days, every Sunday, you open up your computer, you go, God, I hear what Mike's saying, or I hear what's happening here, that song, and I just want to surrender to you. And then Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. And the next Sunday, you come back and you're like, God, every 7 days. And your surrender interval is 7 days. And some of you do really well. You get up every single morning and you do your quiet time. And every morning you wake up and you say, God, before my feet hit the floor, I surrender to you. That's a good thing, right? Your surrender interval is 24 hours. You're like, man, my surrender interval is 24 hours. You know what I've learned? 24 hours is way too long. It is way too long. I've learned that oftentimes I can wake up in the morning, go, God, what a beautiful day, what a great night's rest. I surrender this whole day to you. I wake up, I get up to go make my coffee, and my kids get up, and chaos ensues. And I've got to take a breath, and I got to surrender all over again. For some of you, you get in your car, and by the time you get to where the traffic is, you've got to surrender multiple times along the way, or maybe multiple times in the same phone call. Someone calls you, you're like, God, help me to speak only your truth. And then you have to, every few seconds, go, God, I surrender. God, I surrender, right? We need to learn how to surrender as we breathe. If we are going to live by the Spirit, let us keep in step with the Spirit, to be saturated in His grace, to live in His kingdom. It's the only way we're gonna learn how to see the way we need to see so that God's will is done on earth in a place where it isn't the way it is done in heaven. And it begins in your heart and it begins in my heart. We're gonna sing this song and it just talks about the fact that God's presence is the miracle. It is the miracle. And we want for that miracle to become the source of the miracles that we long for in our culture and that we continue to work for as we work for the redemption of all things till everything is rightly related with everything else. Father, I just come to you and I ask you as we declare this song, we're just gonna declare all praise. And the image in my mind is that all praise is I breathe in your grace and I breathe out your praise. When I say all praise, I want it to flow and to overflow from what I receive from you. And God, that my life in your way would simply be available to be leveraged for every purpose that you have, for everything that you want done. Father, so we fix our eyes. We seek first your kingdom because what we seek first will be what we see first. So God, help us change the way we see. And in doing so, you would change the way we live. And I lift all of this to you. In the name of your Son, Jesus Christ, who is our King. Amen.
Every breath it is a gift, every moment is a treasure. all my past and my regrets, my present and my future. Every table is a feast, every heartbeat is an altar. Every step a mystery, but I'm walking with the author. So we fix our eyes on him. So I fix my eyes upon you. I fix my eyes upon you. So I fix my eyes upon you. I fix my eyes. We say, oh praise, oh praise. Heaven bent to meet us, Father, Son, and Spirit. Oh praise, oh praise. God and man together, one with us forevermore. Yes, you are. So in famine we will lead, in drought we'll see a downpour. Yes, we will. Yes, we will. Oh, let all our fighting cease. The Prince, our peace, has conquered. We fix our eyes. I fix my eyes upon you. I fix my eyes upon you. I fix my eyes upon you. I fix my eyes. We say, oh praise, oh praise. Heaven meant to meet us, Father, Son, and Spirit. Oh praise, oh praise. God and man together, one with us forevermore. Oh, you are with us forevermore. Come on, let's sing this together. So why should my heart grow weary? Don't be so downcast, oh my soul. You are in every moment. You are my greatest miracle. Why should my heart grow weary? Don't be so downcast, oh my soul. You are in every moment. Yes, you are my greatest miracle. Why should my heart grow weary? Don't be so downcast, oh my soul. You are in every moment. You are my greatest miracle. Why should my heart grow weary? Don't be so downcast, oh my soul. You are in every moment. You are my greatest miracle. Yes, you are, you are, you are. And oh,
are in every moment. You are my greatest miracle. What an important and just powerful thing to declare as we end our time today gathered online. Thank you, church, for just declaring that powerful rallying cry that all of our praise is deserving to go to Jesus. And we need to fix our minds, fix our eyes, fix our attention on Jesus today and every day that is in front of us. Church, thank you for allowing us to come into your home today and to be together as a church through this broadcast. We just want to take one final time before we end our time today together that if you are looking for a way to get connected, we would love nothing more than to facilitate a conversation with you and find the best place for you to get connected. You can go to the link that's on the screen right now, fill out your information, and one of our team members is going to reach out to you today or early this week to get that process started. Church, we love you. We hope you have a great week, and thank you again for joining us today.